Good morning. Today we are starting Chapter 7, Minnesota's Newcomers. Who do you think the newcomers are? What do you think we're going to be reading about? Think about where we left off on Chapter 6. Joseph?
European Americans.
Yeah, those European Americans. Remember when we left off, those treaties of 1851 were signed, and Minnesota became a territory, taking on all that land that had been the American Indian land. And remember, one of the changes that came about was thousands of European Americans, those new settlers, were coming into Minnesota. So those are Minnesota's newcomers. So let's learn some of the key terms that are going to be in this chapter about those newcomers coming to Minnesota. The first one is the steamboat. The steamboat is a boat powered by a steam engine. So it's not a canoe that you have to row yourself. It has a steam engine to make it go. Steamboats were the main mode of travel. For newcomers moving to Minnesota. Bless you. During the territorial period. So that steamboat was very important. It helped people get to Minnesota. Think about the big rivers that we have here that those steamboats could travel on. They could go up the Mississippi. They could go on the Minnesota River. So those rivers that connected to the Mississippi would take people all the way up to Minnesota. Katie.
There's a sticker.
Thank you. All right, our next word is the U.S. Congress. The U.S. Congress, has anybody heard of it? Raise your hand if you've heard of Congress. Well, a good number of us have heard of the Congress. This is the form of government that started way back when our country first started and is still here today. So the U.S. Congress is the group of people who make laws for the U.S. It has elected representatives from all states and territories. And it is divided into two groups. The Senate and the House of Representatives. Congress started when our country started. It's still around today. So we still have two parts. We have the Senate and the House of Representatives. They're all, both groups together make up our Congress. Who knows how many senators each state has? Maddie? Yeah, there are 2 senators for every state. There are 50 states, so how many senators are there? 100. So the Senate is a set number. There are only 100 senators. How many representatives does each state have for the House of Representatives? Does anybody know that? What do you think, Joseph?
I think 20.
Okay, Joseph is thinking there are 20 representatives per state.
Wait.
2?
There are 2 senators per state. House of Representatives is different than the Senate. Do you know why, Nick?
I don't know why, but I think I know how many.
How many?
I think there's like 5.
So some states could have 5. Some states could have 20. It is not a set number per state because each state has a different population. So the House of Representatives, it's a proportion. Ooh, bringing math into social studies with those proportions and ratios. So think about if we have 20 students, you might get 1 representative on student council. Okay, if there are 40 students in a class, you would get 2 representatives on student council. If you had 60 representatives, you would get 3. Okay, so think about the same thing with the states on a much bigger scale. So however many tens of thousands of people live in your state or hundreds of thousands, I don't know off the top of my head the number that they use, but you get so many representatives per amount of people. So the bigger your population is, the more representatives you get. The states with a very small population have a small number of representatives, maybe 3. Will?
How many representatives does Minnesota have?
That is a great question. I do not know off the top of my head how many representatives Minnesota has right now. I know there's a good number, but I don't know off the top of my head. So that's something that we can look into as we're going through this chapter. All right, our next key term is governor. The governor is the head of the executive branch in a state or territory. So we see that term executive branch. How many branches of government does the United States have? Will G?
4.
Not 4. Izzy?
3.
3. So one of the branches is the executive branch. So if we look at our state government, the head of our state is the governor. Who is the head of the executive branch for the country? Nathan? The president. Okay, so we've got the president as the head for the country, and each state has its governors. What is another branch of government, Jocelyn? The legislative branch. What does the legislative branch do? So the executive branch has the commander-in-chief, our president. The legislative branch has what in it?
Does it make laws?
It does make laws. So which thing did we just learn about that makes laws that's in our legislative branch? Maddie? The Congress with the Senate and the House of Representatives. They make the laws, so they are the legislator. What's our third branch of government? Katie?
Judicial.
Judicial. What does the judicial have in it, Izzy?
They pass through the laws
And who are they? The judges. Judicial is the judges in the court. What is the biggest, the highest court in the United States, Will W?
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court.
Yep.
Okay. So the legislature, the legislative branch, the Congress, they're the ones that pass the laws. Okay, it goes through there. And then the judicial branch upholds the laws. They are the courts that make sure that the laws are being followed. Now we have our state. A state is a geographic area. So that land area, the geographic area with boundaries. So we have where one state ends and another state starts. Residents, people who live there. And a government. With a constitution and laws. The U.S. has 50 states. Remember, Canada is not a state. It's a different country. Keeping that in mind so we don't write down Canada as a state anymore. So they have 50 states and they share some governing power with the federal government. Maddie?
The only, like, they'll, like, pick up, I don't know, what is it called? You'll see these signs up that are like, vote for, like, Clarissa or something on the, like, sidewalk in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
What are those?
So in the government, there are different layers. So in the state government, the head of our executive branch is the governor. Underneath the governor, we have the mayors of all the cities. Then we also have representatives who go to the state government. So depending on your district size is how many representatives you'll have. So the districts have representatives that go that help vote on the laws for Minnesota. Then there's also things like the school board and the local court system, so voting on the judges. There's lots of different positions that people hold. So it's not just our governor makes all the decisions. There's a lot of people that work with everybody, so they all work together to make sure that we have the right laws and that they're being upheld. All right. So an immigrant is a person who comes into a country to live there. So it's not just a visitor. A person who comes into a country from a different country and comes to live. Mr. Gambino's dad grew up in Italy, in Sicily to be exact. And after World War II, they were immigrants. They moved to France. And then he left his family when he became an adult and moved to Canada and then finally down to Chicago. So he was an immigrant. A lot of times these immigrants, when they're leaving their country to move to a new country, it's for a specific reason. A lot of immigrants will move to find jobs because that's where they might not have the jobs in the country that they're living. After World War II, Italy was on Germany's side, and so they had a lot of Well, they weren't always on Germany's side. They were for quite a bit of the war. So they became very poor after the war. And so they didn't have any jobs. So a lot of people had to leave Italy because they needed jobs for their families to survive. They might leave their country because they have family living already in a new country and they want to go be with their family. Maybe they're being discriminated against in their country because of their race or because of their religion. So there's a lot of people that leave during World War II. A lot of Jewish people left Germany and some of those countries to go to places where the Nazis weren't going to be in power, so they wouldn't be sent to the concentration camps. So they're leaving their country because they're afraid for their lives. In today's world, there's a lot of refugees that are leaving their countries because maybe they're being attacked because of their race, because they're in a different ethnic group than the people that are in power. Maybe it's because of their religion. So that's still happening today, where immigrants are having to leave because they're afraid for their lives. Some people are leaving because they want to find a better place to live where there's more opportunities. We've had, in the last 25 years, there's been, now it's even longer than that. We've had several different immigration populations coming into Minnesota. Back in the 80s and 90s, there were large, 1980s and 1990s, there were large populations of Hmong people coming into Minnesota because Vietnam War had ended and they had helped the United States soldiers in Vietnam. So when the United States left, they were being discriminated against. So large Hmong populations they were being settled here in Minnesota. We also have large Somali populations. Somalia is in Africa, and there are a lot of reasons why people have left Somalia. So Minnesota has been a large population or large area for Somalians to come. So those are in recent years. We will be seeing in this chapter where the immigrants were coming from when Minnesota was first a territory. So we're going to find out where these immigrants were coming from and why they were leaving their home areas, their home countries, to come to the New World, what they were looking for. A recruiter is somebody who encourages new people to join a group or take action. So a recruiter is somebody who encourages new people to join a group or take action. Thinking about the chapter that we're going to be starting, Newcomers, Minnesota's Newcomers. What do you think what role do you think they're going to play in this chapter? What do you think a recruiter is going to do? Any thoughts? Why would a recruiter be important? Nick?
For religious reasons, they want more people to come into their religion, or
Okay, maybe they're going to try to recruit people into their religion. Have we been talking a lot about religion so far in social studies? A little bit, but it hasn't played a big role, so maybe it's going to play a bigger role. What other thoughts do we have, Izzy?
Maybe so they can get more population.
Maybe trying to grow the Minnesota population, now that we have all this land, trying to get even more people to come in. Why do you think we would want more people to come into Minnesota? What do you think more people would bring? Maddie?
Like new resources and different foods and stuff.
Okay, maybe they're going to bring different resources in. Izzy?
More resources so they can get more money.
Yeah, trying to get more money. More people means more money. So it's going to grow Minnesota to be more populated, so it'll be more financially stable. Maddie?
Oh, we're on chapter 7, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because the paper system.
You were at the bathroom when I said
Oh,
that you needed to change that to the 7.
Oh.
Yep, so this is chapter 7. So if you were one of my friends that were at the bathroom at the beginning of class, we're changing that 6. I already have it changed on my digital copy, but it got changed after the printing was made. So this is chapter 7. All right, Constitution is a written document outlining how the government of a state or country is organized. So there's a Constitution of the United States of America that was developed when we first became a country. And we have the Bill of Rights in it saying everybody has the right to bear arms. Everybody has the right to free speech. Everybody has the right to practice their religion. Everybody has the right to vote. So there's all of these rights that are in our Constitution that everybody in the United States has. Then there's the constitutions for each individual state. So each state has their own constitution. Each state has their own laws. So we all follow the United States Constitution, but each individual state is set up slightly different, whatever works for that state. Minnesota, being up in the north and with all of our natural resources that we have, we are set up different than Texas. Think about what you think of when you think of Texas. It looks different. They have different resources. They're going to have different laws. So you have to know whenever you're moving to a different state, you have to know the different laws that each state has, because there will be some differences. Some things everybody has the same because it's a federal law. So it's the United States law. Sometimes each individual state is run differently. So they're back before my time, but Wisconsin used to have a different drinking age. So Minnesota drinking age was 21 back a long time ago. Wisconsin's drinking age was 18. So if you were in college, you had to be really careful because maybe you went to college in Wisconsin and it was legal for you to go to the bar. But when you would come home to Minnesota, now all of a sudden it's not legal because you're only 18 or 19 years old and you have to be 21. So it's important to know the different laws of the states that you're in. Joseph.
I've heard nowadays that in Wisconsin, some parts you're allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink at the age of 14.
I have not heard that. So that is very interesting. I would have to look that up. Maddie.
I know that in Australia.
Shh. Yes.
I know that in Australia.
Oh, friends, please stop talking. Go ahead, Maddie.
I think you just have to be 18.
Yep. And different countries have different laws, just like here we have some are the federal laws, some are just the government laws, each state laws, sorry. So that brings us to federalism. Federalism is a system of government in which power is divided between the federal or national government and various state governments. So look at what we were just saying about the Constitution. There are state constitutions and there are the Constitution of the country. We have the governors, the head of the executive branch of the state or territory, and there's the president is the head of the executive branch for the country. So we have that break between states and country. So we are a federal government. That is our system. We have a federalism because we have some things are run by the whole country and some things are the individual states. So they share power. It's not that the federal government isn't making laws, all of the laws for all of the states. Some things the individual states decide what works best for them. Because we are a very diverse country, our different states have different needs. We wouldn't need the same laws that they need down in Florida, where they have hurricanes, and they might have some laws about that. We don't have hurricanes up in Minnesota. We have some different needs, so there will be different laws. So with that, friends, here in the classroom, we're going to take a couple minutes just to look through this chapter in our book. So quietly look through your chapter to see what we're going to be learning about, and we're going to say goodbye to our friends at home and hope that you are feeling well and have a good day.